Everyone. Today is May 11th, 2023. We're here for our bi-monthly community development meeting. The time is 10 a.m. I'm calling this meeting to order. In attendance are Commissioners Brooks, Matari, and Duncan. Are there any changes to the agenda?
Nothing with substance, just a minor correction on item number 3. That it is not a reconsideration continuation, but just continuation of deliberations. So.
Okay, that is fine. And no opening remarks, and I'll pull for conflicts of interest. Hearing none. Item 1, CUP 22-0021, and this is the Remington Reservoir. And Amy?
Hi, good morning. Yes, project CUP 22-0021. It's an expansion of an existing utility complex facility referred to as the Remington Reservoir. It's within the Remington Water District. The project site is located west of the city of Athol, just south and at the end of East Shoshone Avenue. It's located in the rural zone. The right-of-way just divides it. That's why it appears to look in two areas. And it's located within the country land use designation of the comprehensive plan. The proposal is to upgrade the existing system. Currently, there is a well that was drilled in 1998, a booster station constructed in 1995, and there is currently a 100,000-gallon reservoir constructed in 1995. It's important to upgrade this system so it is in compliance with the Department of Environmental Quality. The proposed improvements would include a 160,000-gallon cast-in-place concrete reservoir, and then additional overflow piping, two additional booster pump stations, and all the booster pumps will be located in the existing structure on site, and of course some connection to the existing system. The aerial on the left shows what's existing. There's the structure to the north, and then there's the existing reservoir. It only sits about 2 feet above ground, and the new reservoir will be located south of that. They will expand the fence area to encompass all the new improvements. And there is an overhead power line to the left of the existing facility. So here's just a plan view of what that would look like. Most of it will be underground, similar to the existing reservoir. So as from the photographs, this is what the existing facility looks like. As you can see, you can barely see the existing reservoir. There is that overhead power line there. In the bottom left, you can see what the fence looks like. It's very much screened, and that will be extended. When we reached out to public agencies, they either provided requirements at time of development or had no objection. IDWR just wants a certificate of completion when everything's done. And Department of Environmental Quality, I just wanted to underline the importance of this project. It is important to bring it into compliance with IDAPA. So these are necessary improvements. And with regard to that power line and why I mentioned it, Kootenai Electric will require a setback, and the applicant will mark these setbacks so that they are maintained during construction. For staff analysis, we find that it met all the performance standards for a public utility complex facility. The lot coverage will not exceed 35%. The impact on the surrounding neighborhood will be minimal. There's already an existing facility, so it will be equal or less the noise or mechanical impact. Essentially, the noise or no new light pollution or air emissions or solid waste will be anticipated. Because this is an expansion, that's why we required a CUP application. As mentioned previously, the fence will be expanded. The existing vegetation, which is very little, but it will be preserved to the greatest extent practicable, and any disturbed areas will be revegetated. It's an unmanned facility, but we will require a designated parking area for maintenance personnel. The applicant has already submitted the necessary building permits and site disturbance permits for this project. And the neighbor to the east has given permission to utilize their property for these improvements, temporary use. In addition to the requirement performance standards, a hearing body must also make these additional findings: that there is a public convenience and necessity for the facility, any adverse effects will be mitigated, and whether we can apply any reasonable restrictions to address those potential adverse effects. There was a public hearing held before the hearing examiner on April 6th. He found the project to be in compliance with the comprehensive plan. The facility is well hidden, and the proposed facility will be as well. There is a public convenience and necessity for the facility and did not find any adverse effect to the proposal. The hearing examiner recommended approval on April 20th, 2023, and I stand for any questions that you have.
Okay, any questions?
No questions.
All right, thank you, Amy.
Sure.
All right, thoughts? We are in deliberations.
I think it's pretty straightforward and a simple project at that, so I don't have any questions or any deep thoughts on the matter.
We should just make a motion.
I agree. Go ahead.
I move that we approve CUP 22-0021 for Remington Reservoir.
I second the motion.
Bill Brooks,
Aye.
Commissioner Matari,
Aye.
Chair Duncan.
Aye. All right, CUP is approved. Item 2, VAR 22-0004, and this is Sappington Variance. And Vlad, is this you? Correct. Okay.
Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, Vlad Finkel with Kootenai County Community Development. This is a request by Sappington Living Trust. However, we do have the underlying property owner on the application as well, because Mr. Sappington is requesting a variance on an adjoining parcel of land to which he resides, and he has an existing exclusive use easement over the parcel of land on which the structure is currently located. The request is for a variance to the rear and side yard setback requirements in the agricultural suburban zone. The subject property is located between the city of Hauser and city of Rathdrum on the north side of Highway 53. The property in question is a little over 1.5 acres in size. The setback requirements for accessory buildings in the agricultural suburban zone are 25 feet from the front, 10 from the side, and 15 from the rear. The area that is shown in red is a portion of the property that Mr. Sappington has a legal use easement over. He actually resides on the property directly to the north of this. His residence is in this area where my laser is pointing. And the document here basically conveys that portion of the property that is owned by, I believe, the Kinleys. That portion of the property is for the sole benefit of Mr. Sappington. This is the area in question that we have the applicant complete a topo map to show the existing physical features and topographical or terrain challenges that preclude him from being able to relocate the carport that was constructed about 3 years ago in a different location, meeting the underlying agricultural suburban setback requirements. Some of the history on this project: the applicant initially contacted our department in September of 2020 and requested a building permit for the construction of this RV carport. He advised staff at the time that there was an existing pad in that area from the previous property owner, and one of our staff planners advised him at the time that the location of this structure would be encroaching into the rear yard setback as well as the side yard setback. He acknowledged that, but because of personal issues and because of the fact that there was an emergency for him to install the structure, he said he would move forward and deal with the building permit as well as the variance request after the fact. We've been going back and forth with him for some time, but ultimately we conducted a site visit in February of this year to conclude that there is significant challenge with moving this structure elsewhere on the property, and I'll get into the details of that as we move forward with my presentation. So the current request is to have a 13-foot-8 variance from the rear yard setback with the structure being 1 foot 4 inches from the rear property line, as well as a 2-foot-2 variance on the side yard setback with the structure being 7 foot 10 inches from the side yard property line. These are some of the photos in question, and I do have a video on the next slide that shows the topographical features. The area of the exclusive use easement is encumbered by significant slopes. There is, as you can see, a large portion of that area has rock outcroppings, basalt rock outcroppings that would make it very difficult for the applicant to be able to move that structure elsewhere. And then there are other features that were built elsewhere on the property that's relatively flat, which I'll also explain. This is a video of staff walking up the driveway to the exclusive use area, and there is significant slope. I don't think it's you can quite show this quite well on the video, but there is slope, and then you can see it's very hilly with rock outcroppings on a large portion of that exclusive use easement area. This is the structure in question, and as we walk up, there is a plateau here, there's a meadow here, but it is encumbered by an existing septic and drain field that's benefiting the applicant's residence on the adjoining parcel of land. It appears to us that historically that area was, there was a boundary line adjustment that made such a unique set of circumstances where you have sort of a jog in the property line as well as the need for an access and use easement benefiting the parcel to the north of this property. During the agency comment period, we solicited comments from agencies with jurisdiction. No one really had any concerns. I would like to add that when the applicant constructed the structure without the building permit process and the variance request being approved, we did issue a code violation, and the only option for the applicant to remedy the code violation would be A, to remove the structure, or B, to go through this process and see if the Board of County Commissioners would approve it. That would then allow him to move forward with getting the building permit finalized with the approval of a variance. During the public comment period, we received only one comment in support. Really, this portion of the property is well isolated from any development in the area, and there is steep terrain around the subject property as well as the parcel to the north on which the applicant resides. So we have a list of staff analysis that we put together to basically express our support of the request. They're listed here. I can read through them. But we believe that the physical features of the property and the existing built features on site preclude the applicant from being able to build elsewhere on this exclusive use easement. This area that's relatively flat, as you get up on top of this plateau or this bench, it is encumbered by an existing septic tank and a drain field. We concluded that if the applicant were to move the structure further east to this flatter portion of the property, they would have to remove the septic tank as well as the drain field and move it elsewhere on the property, because the access driveway would be over the current drain field area. And as you know, you cannot have any driveways or any compacted soil over the drain field. So this area does not lend itself as a good area for development, because it would require the removal of the existing drain field and septic, and we find that to be a huge financial burden on the applicant. Although, a hardship, undue hardship, cannot be based solely on financial obligation. We find that it would be just difficult and possibly draconian for us to enforce that they remove this existing drain field benefiting the residents on the parcel to the north. One of the questions that was raised during the hearing examiner's hearing is, why is it that the applicant cannot construct or move the structure on the property that they own, not on which they have an easement? That's a good question. Based on our site visit, the area, the pad for the home, the garage, and the driveway, it looks like it was carved out of a hillside, so that the only portion of the property to the north that is relatively flat is encumbered by existing structures, and there would be a significant need for blasting and removal of rock outcroppings to make a relatively flat area on an adjoining parcel of land or elsewhere on this use easement to move this structure. The hearing examiner heard the request on April 6th of this year and subsequently submitted a recommendation of approval. One of the findings that I'd like to read into the record that the hearing examiner made is that, based on his review of the record and a personal site visit, he concludes that there is no other viable alternative location for the structure. The parcel contains significant and varying slopes, and the area is littered with exposed rock. There is an existing septic drain field in the only other potential spot, which itself is not an ideal spot for use, with a narrow and curvy driveway. And of course, that would require the removal of that drain field area benefiting the structure, as I mentioned before. I stand for any questions that you have for me at this time.
All right, Bruce?
Yeah, I just want to make sure I understand this, that the applicant lives on a particular lot with their home. That lot is largely surrounded by these other lots, so he has a right-of-way easement that takes him from the road up to his residence, and that what he's looking for is to ultimately build a permanent structure on a different piece of property. And does he not own that other property, or he does own that other property?
He does not own that property. So your initial analysis, Commissioner Matari, is correct. The applicant's property here, as you can see to the north, I'm pointing with the laser, it is landlocked, implying that it does not have direct access on the adjoining or on the abutting private road or public road. He has an access easement across the adjoining parcel to the south that provides legal and perpetual access to his property. He also owns an exclusive use easement on which he wants to retain this RV carport. Perhaps Mr. Braden could clarify, but in our view, an exclusive use easement area benefiting this individual would be similar to like a utility company having a utility easement for their benefit. Let's say you have a power company that wants to have a substation or some sort of a facility benefiting their needs, or you have some other, like a water district, or you have some agency that is benefiting from your property, and they have an exclusive use easement. In this case, this individual, of course, is not a private or a public utility company. He's just an individual that purchased an exclusive use easement. The underlying property owner is still responsible for property taxes on the geographical area of his parcel. It's just he has no use over that area of his land that is now being benefited by Mr. Sappington, who resides to the north, if that makes sense.
Mostly, yeah. It's definitely a different situation. I guess, and this is just for my own understanding. Who owns the structure if it's built on another person's lot, but they have exclusive use easement?
The individual who has the rights to that exclusive use easement, he has a document that conveys that portion of property for his use and needs.
Mr. Sappington, who also owns the property to the north, owns the structure in question, and he has placed it pursuant to the exclusive use easement that Vlad's been talking about. And while he was talking, I confirmed, I looked at the actual grant of easement, and it does allow for that use. So, and my understanding is that the underlying owner, the owner of the, what you call the servient estate, the owner of the property subject to the easement, has also assented to this request. So we've got both owners.
So there's no real issues there as far as just, someone claiming, well, you may have paid for that building, but it's mine, or
No,
I paid for it.
there are no disputes of that nature.
And so the real issue is just the distance from the lot line.
Correct.
Yeah,
And whether it meets the criteria for a variance,
yeah, okay,
which the hearing examiner has found that it did.
okay. And no one else in the surrounding area made any comments or?
Just one public comment in favor, and didn't provide any explanation, but it was in favor of the request.
Okay, well, I'm done with my questions.
Commissioners, I'd like to point out just one quick thing, if you don't mind. We have a condition in the recommendation that basically requires that the applicant finalize the building permit application for which that they requested before we release a code violation. They have been very adamant about staff removing the code violation throughout this process. We find that it is inappropriate for us to do so because in our view, we lose the leverage of having the building permit application being complete. So if you agree with staff's and the hearing body's recommendation to include that condition, that it be retained.
Yeah, this is the first of two steps to clear the code violation, the other one being, successful completion of the building permit process.
And what is the square footage?
The square footage of this building, I'm sorry, just a second.
It's like it's
20, so it's
20.
a little over
600, 700 feet.
square feet.
Okay. All right, questions, Bill? No?
Well, I guess I do. This issue of the code violation, what difference does it make going down the road for this fellow?
Well, the code violation was initially issued because A, the structure was erected on site without a building permit, and B, it was encroaching into the prescribed setbacks. Now that we're moving forward with resolving at least one of the issues with having the setbacks become conforming with the approval of the variance if the board chooses to go that route. The second process would be for Mr. Sappington to finalize the building permit, and they're very minor. I believe we already have some of the engineering documents for the structure. It's a metal carport. It's very light. There's not much.
What's the negative impact of having the code violation on the record?
That's a good question. As I understand,
So I can answer that.
Sure.
Pat Braden, Civil Deputy Prosecutor for the record again. The negative, well, first of all, it encumbers both parcels because of the presence of the easement. That would make it at least very difficult to sell down the road. Perhaps somebody could buy it for cash and assume the code violation, but
Because there was a code violation.
yeah.
But that doesn't mean legally there still is a code violation?
Until it's released, which would happen upon approval of this variance, which is a prerequisite for approval of the building permit. And then we would release the code violations, and it would be as if they didn't exist from that point going forward.
So what is the harm of keeping it there until that's done? I mean, what would a person's motivation be?
Well, like I said, ability to sell the property with clear title for one thing, and also the assurance that the county would not, sue the owners to have the structures demolished or moved. So there is some the owners have
Potentially a
skin in that
downside.
game. Yes.
Yeah.
I have another question. I noticed that one of the slides was out on that trailer. No one's living in there, right?
No, I don't believe anybody's living there. I think they use it intermittently for their needs, and I think they had a need when they erected it at that
Okay.
point.
Okay. All right, I'm fine with the variance and keeping the recommended condition on there where when the building permit is approved that they can release the violation. Okay. All right,
You want a motion?
please.
I move that we approve VAR 22-0004 for Sappington variance upon the successful completion of the building permit process before the violation can be released.
So essentially with the conditions recommended by the
Remaining,
hearing exam.
Yeah, that's 7.04 in the
Yeah.
hearing examiner's recommended conditions.
Okay,
I second the motion.
Bill Brooks,
Aye.
Commissioner Matari,
Aye.
Chair Duncan.
aye, all right, variance passes with proposed conditions. Item 3, this is MSP 22-0004, and it's Lakestone, and it's really a continuation of the deliberations, but the reason why there's a reconsideration because it was based on Lakes Highway District meeting that they were going to have. So do we have the results of that meeting?
Commissioners, the Highway District Board did have a meeting on May 11th.
May 11th is
Today's today,
I'm sorry, May 1st.
May 1st, okay?
May 1st. Staff has reached out several times. I have spoken with Director of the Highway District, Mr. Shanley, as well as his administrative staff. I have requested clarification as to the board's discussion and the outcome of their discussion. We have not received anything in writing. I was advised that the only way that the minutes from that meeting can be released is once their board approves them, which is they're planning on doing next Monday. I have asked for video or audio recording and submitted a public records request earlier this week. We have not received anything from the Highway District at this point. Based on my phone call conversation with Director Shanley, he alluded to the fact that their board discussion did not change their position with respect to the Board of County Commissioners' request for the installation of a gate within the public right-of-way of Fir Avenue south of the proposed plat. But unfortunately, we don't have anything in writing at this time for us to present to you.
Okay. So our choices are continue with the deliberations, knowing that we don't really have the authority to put that gate there, or continue the deliberations again to our next community development meeting in 2 weeks on the 25th and get written minutes or other documentation from that meeting. Is there a preference?
I'd like to see us move to put off the deliberation until such time as we have the information requested by Vlad. I think that's very reasonable and prudent for us to do that.
I agree.
Okay.
2 weeks.
Okay.
We should have it.
Continued again to 2 weeks. With that, there are no business items, so 10:30, meeting adjourned.
Thank you.